All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're stepping into a world that's way beyond just spreadsheets and stats. We're talking about qualitative research, which is really just a powerful way of understanding the human stories, the why behind the what. This quote really hits the nail on the head. Sometimes things are made to sound super complicated on purpose, maybe to keep us from really getting it. But today, we're going to peel all of that back. I mean, what if the real secret wasn't buried in some complex formula, but was actually just about learning to listen and to see things in a new, more focused way? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. So, first things first, numbers, incredibly useful. We love numbers, but they can't tell us the whole story. Some of the biggest, most important human questions just can't be answered by counting things. They need us to dig into experiences and find the meaning. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how clearly it lays out the difference. See, quantitative research gives us the what. It counts the successful students. But qualitative research, it gets to the heart of it, asking what success actually feels like to the people living it. It's the difference between a head count and a heartbeat. So let's be super clear on this. Qualitative research is not just about randomly collecting cool stories. No way. It's a rigorous, super systematic way of studying human experience to really uncover meaning. It's all about depth, not just breadth. Okay, so how do researchers actually do this stuff? Well, they have a toolkit, and in that toolkit are different approaches, kind of like different lenses on a camera. Each lens lets them see the world from a totally unique angle. Let's get to know the 5 big ones. Think of this table as our menu for today. You've got the 5 main approaches, what each one focuses on, and a little analogy to make it stick. This is our map for the next few minutes. So let's start at the top with narrative. First up, narrative research. This one is all about an individual's personal story. A researcher here is basically like a biographer. They're carefully piecing together the events of someone's life to see how all those past experiences shaped who they are today. It's identity told through story. Next, we have phenomenology. And I gotta say, I love this espresso shot analogy. Imagine you talk to 20 different people about, say, the feeling of burnout. They're all gonna have different stories, right? But this approach tries to find that shared, universal core of the experience, the pure essence. It distills all those voices down into one potent, concentrated shot of understanding. Now, grounded theory, this one flips the script. Instead of starting with a theory you want to prove, you start with nothing but the raw data, interviews, observations, the whole shebang, and you just let a theory bubble up from it. It's like a sculptor looking at a block of stone and slowly chipping away until a clear shape, a clear explanation, reveals itself. With ethnography, the big key word is immersion. This is not about doing a few quick interviews and leaving. Nope. This is about a researcher spending a ton of time actually living inside a group or a community, just like an anthropologist would, to deeply understand its shared beliefs, its behaviors, all those unwritten rules you can only see from the inside. And finally, we have the case study. Here, the researcher puts on their detective hat. They focus intensely on one single case. That could be a person, a school program, an event, whatever. And they gather every single piece of evidence they can find to build this incredibly rich, detailed picture of that one specific thing. So we've got our 5 lenses, but choosing one isn't just random. It all depends on a researcher's most fundamental beliefs about the world. It's kind of like a hidden operating system running in the background, guiding every single choice they make. Okay, I know these are some big academic-sounding words, but the ideas behind them are actually pretty simple. Before they even start, researchers have to ask themselves, do I think there's one single objective truth out there, or are there many? Is knowledge something you discover or something you create with people? And what about my own values? Should I try to keep them out, or are they part of the process? The answers to these questions change everything. And those core beliefs lead researchers to adopt a specific worldview. For instance, a social constructivist believes reality is literally built through our interactions with each other. A researcher with a transformative view believes the whole point of research is to call out and challenge inequality. The key thing to get is that this framework is the final filter for how they see the world, and it's what tells them which of those 5 lenses we just talked about is the right tool for the job. Okay, enough theory. How does all this stuff actually look in the real world? Let's dive in and connect these 5 approaches to some actual studies so you can really see them in action.
So, in one famous narrative study, researchers looked at a teacher's entire life story. The point wasn't just to list her resume. The goal was to understand how her childhood, her education, her personal struggles, all of it, wove together to create the unique, one-of-a-kind teacher she became in the classroom.
There was this incredibly powerful phenomenological study that interviewed people who were living with AIDS. By really analyzing all these different personal and painful experiences, the researchers were able to distill the shared essential feeling of what it was like to live with that diagnosis back then. They found the common thread, the single glass of juice from all those oranges. Then you have a groundbreaking study that used grounded theory to look at people with chronic illnesses. What was so cool is that the researcher didn't start with some existing theory about coping. Instead, she just listened to their stories. And from that, she built a whole new theory from the ground up that explained how people actually adapt to this new reality. And for a great example of ethnography, picture this. A researcher spent an entire year just shadowing a school principal. He was there for meetings, for playground duty, for everything. And that deep, long-term immersion is what let him understand the school's unwritten rules, its rituals, and the true culture of leadership that a simple one-off survey could never, ever capture. Finally, a case study that zeroed in on a single after-school program. By talking to kids, parents, staff, and digging through documents, researchers created this incredibly detailed portrait of that specific program, its wins, its challenges, its unique vibe. The goal wasn't to generalize to all programs. It was to deeply understand that one case. So we've gone through all these different approaches and seen some real-world examples. What's the big takeaway here? Why does getting all this really matter? Okay, if you only remember a few things, make it these. First, this is a serious, structured process, not just casual storytelling. Second, it's an honest one. Good researchers practice what's called reflexivity. They actually admit their own biases and think about how their own views shape what they see. And maybe most important of all, the lens you choose literally determines the picture you're going to get. There's no single best way to do it. There's only the right way for the question you're asking. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. At its heart, qualitative research is all about the power of asking the right questions. So I'll leave you with this to think about. If you could ask one single question to truly understand an experience, something like grief or joy or failure, what would that question be?